PR measurement has got to start with goal setting, right? That's what it is all about. We have to start with the goals. We have to measure the effect of outcomes, not activity, not outputs, not how many press releases you put out. It's got to measure what the outcome is, and that outcome has to tie back to the goals. Duh. I've been doing this for 21 years, so to me this is a big duh factor, but a lot of people weren't on board with this, which is the effect of business results can and should be measured, right? We wrote a paper on that 3 years ago for the IPR. We've been doing this for years, but not everybody has understood that, yes, you can measure PR's impact on business results. Just ask Sam Adams. They launched Sam Adams using PR only, right? How's the net effect of that? Media measurement requires quantity and quality. It is not just about numbers, it's about the quality of that press announcement. It's about the quality of the engagement. Here was the big controversy, right? Add value equivalency are not the value of public relations. We got people who make their living with AVEs to kind of sort of buy into this, right? They want to take a little more time to actually implement it. But they basically said, yes, you're right, it is not the value of public relations. So you can now go back, agency folks and everybody else, go back to the clients and say, I don't care if you want this. The leaders of IPRA, PRSA, Institute for Public Relations, AMEC, the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, the Public Relations Firm, CIPR, all of these groups got together and agreed that AVE should not be used, right? We'll come up, there's an alternative. It's called the validated metrics. But it is not something that is acceptable in polite society anymore. Social media can and should be measured, duh. But that was another thing that we had to come to an agreement on that said, yes, this is part of what measurement should be. And transparency and replicability are paramount. In other words, if somebody comes to you and says, here's my black box, you have a 37, congratulations, it's better than a 22. You have the right to say, wait a minute, what's in that black box, right? I need to be able to replicate this wherever I go. Not just at my job at, XYZ company, but when I get a job at the agency, or I am at the agency now and I want to take that to another client, or I want to take that to another company. I have the right to be able to replicate that data. So you have the right to go back to your clients and say, no, to your agencies, your services companies, and say, I want to know how you got to that number. We followed that up a year later. We said, okay, here we are, we have validated metrics, we have a whole framework now to do measurement right. Now what are our priorities, right? And again, the same group, PRSA and IPRA, all those people got together again and they said, what are our priorities? How to measure the ROI of PR is the #1 priority. So while everybody else, all of your clients are sitting there saying, I want to do AVEs, there are really important people out there saying, we're measuring ROI. And so when your agency guys go in there and say, we got $37 worth of AVEs, somebody else is going, yes, but we generated $300,000 worth of revenue. Who's going to have more credibility with the CEO when that happens, right? You're going to go in there and say, I got 37 more friends on Facebook. And somebody else is going to go in there saying, yes, I saved the company $300,000. You're not going to have the credibility if you don't have this ROI factor in there. Creating and adopting global standards is a big initiative around this. Right now, I'm doing it. Lots of people are doing it. Essentially, the problem is we have to bring everybody else into the conversation about social media measurement standards. Because there's a lot of effort going on behalf of the Web Analytics Association, all kinds of other people. We have to get that together. We have to make measurement intrinsic a part of the PR toolkit, and we have to educate the clients, as we all know, to insist on measurement of outputs and outcomes and business results, not just activity. So, let's start with a little myth busting here. And this is, I've got way too many slides, and I promise everybody I'd get through them quickly, but nobody needs to own social media. I'm going to go through this list very quickly and then talk a little bit in more detail. Social media is not about Facebook, and an awful lot of people are just hung up on that, on Facebook and Twitter. It's not, eyeballs are not necessarily awareness, followers do not necessarily mean influence, likes aren't engagement, engagement isn't ROI, ROI may not be the sales may not be the answer, sentiment may not matter, and it's not about you. Let me elaborate on these things a little bit more. First of all, in the early days of social media, it was sort of an IT thing. It was all the geeks out there did it. Now we're all trying to force fit it somewhere between marketing and PR. The good companies, the companies that have really embraced it and are using it to benefit the bottom line, they all see it as part of the DNA. They see it, Dell sees it as it helps customer service, it helps sales, it helps product development. It's just part of the DNA. So stop trying to control it and start trying to measure how you contributed to it. And one of the big mistakes is that because of that early IT focus, there's an awful lot of web analytics guys out there claiming credit for a whole bunch of benefit, and a whole bunch of sales, and a whole bunch of ROI that isn't accurate, right? I changed this on the website, or I did this for a Facebook page, and I generated this much in sales. And nobody in PR is standing up and going, wait a minute, yeah, but we had the best earned media, we had the most positive, we had all of our messages out there at the same time, and that's really a big part of it. I heard the guys from 3M get up and say, you know, all of this increased revenue was due to what I did, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. You had the best PR year in the world, but because the data, I said, you've got the data, you've got 3 years worth of great PR earned media measurement data there. You've got it. Why didn't you ask for it? Why did you go for it? I didn't think about PR. We as PR people have to stand up and say, wait a minute, when you're doing these calculations, if you're not factoring in the earned media, your data is flawed. You are presenting bad data. You can't do that anymore. So you've got to look at it as, here's our contribution to the bigger picture, rather than saying, I want to control it. Social media, very quickly, we all know it's not about Facebook, it's not about Twitter. We know this, our bosses do not. They have it in their head. It's all about Facebook. And it's not. It's about Yelp if you're in the travel and tourism business. It's about Flickr if you're, you know, have visual stuff out there. It's about Groupon if you're in the immediate transaction business. It's about Foursquare for all kinds of things. Foursquare can solve all kinds of problems by driving traffic into a retail outlet. One of the biggest problems the beer manufacturers have is beer sales are driven by weather. So they're using Foursquare to counteract that, to say on a rainy day, hey, $1 off for, you know, beers at, you know, from 4 o'clock on.